There's a constant waves of activities in our brains at any moment in time. As the neurons fire and spike, they constantly produce brainwaves. And for the longest time, scientists believed that these brainwaves were just a byproduct of the spiking and firing of the neurons. However, just in the past few years, scientists have become to realize that these brainwaves and frequencies may not only be just the byproduct of neural network spiking, but actually have a role in the infrastructure as well as the communication between different brain regions. At one of the MIT labs, for example, in the past few years, scientists have now confirming more and more that this may be the fact that our brainwaves frequency may have a very important role in terms of the communication among different brain regions. And this is a part of the body of work that me myself have been extremely active within and done research for the past decades. So it's a great confirmation to see that these type of studies are coming out from very top-notch laboratories in the world. In this particular study and in this particular case, these MIT scientists found out that the two main regions of the brain that are extremely important when it comes to learning, namely the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, appear to be communicating with one another through different brainwaves frequencies, beta and theta waves. Beta waves being a little bit higher than the theta, and theta waves being a little bit lower than beta waves. It's important side note that this particular study was done on animals. Hence, the theta waves were more apparent because in a adult human, theta waves are not really apparent when we are in a waking state. In waking state, we usually exhibit either alpha, but mainly beta and gamma waves, which are higher frequencies. Now, in this study, these MIT scientists found out that as the brain was learning to connect, for example, different items or different objects, these two regions of the brain, hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, were communicating through these different frequencies as the subjects were learning an item or an. They found out that when the subjects were correctly linking objects, let's say a location of an event, they were linking the location with the event, there were increased rate of higher frequencies, in this case beta frequencies. But when they linked the objects incorrectly, then there were more of a lower brainwaves frequencies, in this case theta frequencies. It is as if these two regions of the brain, hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, were playing different tunes in different frequencies depending on whether the subject was learning the objects correctly or not. So when they appeared to be learning the correct object, there were increased beta waves, and when what they showed to be false learning, then there were increased theta waves. It's also important to remember that the scientists for this particular study were examining the formation of the explicit memory. Explicit memory is the type of memory that is dedicated to connecting for example, location to an event, connecting a name to a face. So it's very type of an explicit memory that you're connecting two items or two objects with one another. And so in formation of these explicit memories, these scientists realized that when the explicit memory was formed, for example, connecting an event to a location, if the answer of the subjects of the study were incorrect, then there were more theta waves that the brain emanated. But if it was correct, then there was more beta, and scientists believe that these different frequencies were facilitating the communication between hippocampus and prefrontal cortex to make sure that the subject of the studies learned the correct thing, the correct object. In other words, when the guess of an item was correct, there were more beta waves detected, and when the guess of an item was incorrect, then the theta waves increased between these two regions. Earlier studies within the same lab at the MIT had also shown that beta waves appear to strengthen the connection between neurons and within a neural network, whereas theta waves appear to weaken the connections between neurons and within the neural networks in our brain. Obviously, these findings are extremely important and extremely exciting stepping stone for us to start learning even more about how our brain works and also how memories form, as well as how we learn, and of course our working memories as well. Other important aspects of these studies is how it's also addressing the flow of information. Where is it sent and who is sending it to whom? The direction of the information, the frequencies, in which case it's more apparent among the region, as well as how it all ties back in to a collaboration between the neurons and the brainwave frequencies, or the physical brain with the non-physical brain, and what it all means, especially when we are forming memory, we are learning. And so these findings also highlight the importance of us really paying attention as to the way in which brain waves appear to be a huge part of this infrastructure of cognitive functions within the brain, and them not only being this sort of a buzz that we traditionally have used to, for example, detect seizures, or more like detecting issues with brain in healthcare. Not that there is anything wrong with that, but there is definitely much more to these brain frequencies when it comes to information and cognitive functions within. What we're now discovering is far more important than us just ignoring brain waves in general when it comes to cognitive brain functions and just seeing them as a measuring or detection mode in healthcare. And for us to pay attention to the fact that brainwaves frequency may and do have important role in establishing this infrastructure and sort of the communication and information exchange within different brain regions. All of these, along with other hypotheses, have been the pillar of my own experimental work and hypothesis for the past decades. Over the past decades, this, along with other experiments and hypotheses, have been the pillar of my own research work. And these scientific findings from other institutions, conducted independently and separately, are pivotal moment, an extremely exciting and unbelievable moment of my own body of work and my own research for the past decade. And the confirmation when seeing that other scientific labs have independently and separately come to the same conclusion as your own body of work, it's a feeling and a state that it's very hard to explain, especially after decades of hard work, uncertainty, and self-doubt.